So this is episode 5. Now, again, what does the upside down world and Stranger Things have to do with abortion? Well, let's get into it. So let's talk about shame. Will, in the seasons of Stranger Things, is gay, in love with his best friend, and apparently he's going to come out in the final season, which is season 5. And I want to talk about abortion and shame and how long it takes to come out and talk about it. In the last episode, I talked about how we lose our voice. And I think shame has a lot to do with it. I think it's impacted with trauma, PTSD. It's impacted with how we perceived ourselves as kids, so how we were raised based on our own perceptions. But I think shame overcasts the event. In fact, it was 22, 23 years before I talked about it openly that I even admitted that that I had an abortion. And the reason is, I think, I didn't want people to color me in the coloring book, a certain color. I didn't want them to change the perception of me, because I had changed my perception of me, that's for sure. Um, and most importantly, the self condemnation that I had over myself was so severe. It was so severe. It was more severe than anything I could have ever imagined. And I didn't even know it until I was in my second healing program. And one of the other gals was, we had to write a letter to ourselves. And one of the gals wrote a letter talking about her self hatred. And the tears started down my face. And when you get into that like heavy sobbing and you can't control it, it takes over and you start looking really ugly and hyperventilating and it becomes really ugly. Well, that's what was happening as she was reading her letter to herself, her letter to herself to the group. And I could not control it. And because that was the moment that I realized how much self-hatred I had been carrying for myself. And no one would know it really, except because no one could really tell because I was really good at hiding it. I appeared one way. I had a good job. I was managing people. I was training people. I had lots of responsibility, but inside I was in turmoil, and I could not forgive myself for what I had done. I just could not. And I had taken a healing program, it was like a 3-day retreat about 8 years earlier. And that one was to get right with God, which was good because I didn't really know God. But by the end of that weekend, I realized that I really did think that God didn't love me anymore. And that helped me to realize that he did. So I was good there. That was really, really healing for me. Very, very healing. And again, I was not following the Bible or anything at that time. That retreat changed my life, no question. And man, the weight I was carrying of that trauma was big. However, I was not done yet. They didn't dive into a very important element, which was self-hatred, which was self-condemnation. Now, a lot of people think, well, God forgives you, so you don't have to carry it anymore. Well, that's fine for people who really understand the Bible, but I didn't. And I was raised, sort of Catholic, I was baptized Catholic, but I really didn't know anything about God. which I found really frustrating. I'd go to church and I didn't learn anything. I just would get frustrated. So I just stopped going. But I revered God, and I just didn't understand the cross, if you will. And it was that program that I realized that the whole point of the cross, the whole point of everyone loving Jesus, and then they all turn their backs on him. Everyone, his own people, even his own followers and his disciples, disappeared when he was crucified. They all disappeared, and he was left completely alone. And that was showing that he was taking on the rejection. And then this mocking, that was showing that he took on the mocking from people, and the torture and the torture he received from the Romans. He took on everything, every possible thing that we could face in our lifetime. He took on, and it got stapled. It was stapled to a cross. He became everything that we ever feel: the trauma, the PTSD, the abuse, the rejection even from our own father, which he did. His father was like not even talking to him, and those were his last words. But I never got it until then. I never got it. And so that means that here I was carrying this self-hatred for so long, like 20, 25 years. Well, at that time it was 24 years. And that was when I realized that I had no right to condemn myself. I had no right to self-condemn myself because God already took it. That was the whole point of the cross. That's why he died for us. So for me to keep carrying this self-hatred like I'm carrying my own cross is saying that the cross was not enough. Think about that for a minute. How ludicrous is that? That was like, when you have those aha moments, that was the aha moment that I got finally 24 years later. And that self-condemnation was so in me. It affected my relationships. It affected my job. It colored everything in my world. If you think about abortion and you think that you're okay with it, but then your life starts raveling out of control and you're like, why is this happening? I made the choice, so why is this happening? But it's because that upside down world is because there is a spiritual world beyond what you can see. And unfortunately, I experienced that upside down world, and I still do to a degree. In fact, do you think the upside down world wants me talking about this? No. They have tried to keep me silent for a long time. I'm going to say years, a long time. Now I have the courage to do it because I don't carry the self-condemnation anymore. I don't carry the shame anymore. Like Will was shameful that he felt these feelings for his best friend who was not gay, but it was killing him to live a lie. And it's hard living a lie. And it's hard living with shame because when you live a lie, you're living in shame. You're ashamed of who you are. I mean, to be gay must be really challenging. I mean, I can't imagine the self-condemnation that people who are gay go through before they come out. And, shame has no color. Shame has no gender. And abortion, carrying around that abortion trauma, because it's trauma. It's not just the decision. It's trauma because your decision was based on a lot of things. And a lot of it has to do with who you think you are. And my self-condemnation was already in progress from childhood. It's already in progress. Because if it hadn't have been, I wouldn't have been having sex in the first place with somebody I hardly knew. I mean, I really liked him, but I had no business having sex with somebody I hardly knew. It's a disgrace to him, to me. I should have valued myself and him. to get to know the person, to get to know their likes and dislikes and their hearts. And when you have a sexual relation with somebody and hope that is going to continue without forming a bond, a trust level, you're in denial. It's not going to be successful. It can't be successful because you haven't set the foundation. And so I'm going to wrap this up by saying that shame is very, very powerful. And you don't have to ever carry shame. There are places who want to talk to you about your shame. There's nonprofit organizations that are more than happy to talk to you about your shame. And you can reach out to me. I'd be happy to listen. And we might even have something in common. And you can reach me anytime, one way or the other. And I hope that this series was helpful. And I look forward to hearing, your feedback. Hopefully it's not hate. Hopefully it's to further conversation because we need to talk about this stuff and we need to get past shame. So thanks everyone. It's been a pleasure.